Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm working on this 2500 watt Powermate generator. This one I don't know much about other than it was left outside, and I believe it's in non-running condition, but even that I'm not sure of. I've pulled the engine over and it has compression, so I don't think we have any issues there. And I checked the oil. The oil color seems decent and it's filled to where it should be, and the tank is actually clean and dry. So maybe, just maybe, this only needs gas and it will start right up, but I think that's wishful thinking. So let me get you set up a little bit better, add a little bit of gas to that tank and pull it over, see if we get any signs of life. Got the light hooked up just in case it decides it wants to start. Want to see if it has power output, but I can see we already have a problem. Looks like the fuel line is leaking where it connects to the tank. So let's try to start this real quick and see if the carb is any good. Yeah, and we get no signs of life. So the carb has issues, the fuel line has issues. So I want to get the airbox off and give it a squirt of starting fluid. Unfortunately, this wheel is completely blocking access to that. So instead, I'm going to get the tank drained. We'll get the wheel off and get the airbox cover off and try this again. Ah, it's loose. That's why it's leaking. Anyway, I thought this tank was empty because someone stored it properly, but that's probably not the case. I think it just leaked out. Yeah, initially, I thought the problem was the clamp that was used. It was loose. Ideally, a spring clamp should be used. In this case, I'm not sure that would solve the problem because this line, it fits very loosely onto the fitting. So, yeah, most likely that needs to be swapped out. So we'll do that in a bit. But let's get the wheel off and get better access to that carburetor. This wheel, it's held on with a push nut. And they're really designed to be put on and not taken off. It's not that you can't get them off, but a lot of times they are damaged when they are pulled off. So regardless, I don't think we have any options if I want to gain access to that carburetor. Yeah, you can tell someone else was trying to get in here and they couldn't get the airbox back on properly. No doubt it was because of that clearance issue that wheel was causing. You know, why the manufacturer chose to put the engine in like this, I'm not sure. If they had assembled it the other way, 180 degrees, then there'd be no clearance issues with that carburetor. Let's try this again. It was a little bit hard to start, surprisingly, with the starting fluid, but once it started, I could tell that engine sounded good, and the carburetor, it took over with the fuel that was left in the bowl. So I turned the choke off, the engine started to surge a bit. I did have to apply choke about halfway to get things to smooth out. The generator, it is making power, so overall, I think we're doing pretty well. So I think I'm going to hook up the test tank, hook up a fuel supply basically to that carburetor, try starting it again, and see if that surging gets any better with a fuel supply, or is it just a partially clogged carburetor? Well, guys, this might be a quick video. The carburetor is doing a halfway decent job. I was able to turn that choke off, and things smoothed out after about a minute. But we've come this far. I think it would be prudent to get that carb cleaned anyway, given how hard it is to access with that wheel installed. And even the test tank hooked up to that line, I do see it dripping a little bit. So that line needs to be replaced, carb cleaned, and we'll throw this thing back together and bring it outside. We'll put it under a load and see how it does. All right, let's take a look in here. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Obviously, it's running the engine, so it can't be terrible, but I did find the date code on this engine, and it was made in April of 2003. So I'm sure this carburetor is overdue. Not too bad. There's a little junk in the bowl, but all things considered, carburetor looks pretty good. That's pretty much it on this carburetor. I don't think anything else is removable. So I'll just go through all the openings, make sure there's no blockages, and we'll get this soaking for a bit in the ultrasonic. And there's a look at what came out of the carburetor. Definitely a bit of sediment, but not too bad. The bowl nut on this carburetor is the main jet. I'm using these micro drill bits not to remove any material, but to find the largest bit that fits and use that to scrape the plaque off the sides of that jet. Yep, almost there. I'll give it a few more minutes. Cleaned up pretty well. Not that it was that dirty, but you can see there is some aluminum oxide on it. Certainly not new looking, but I think it will run a lot better. That pin's going in there a little tight. Hopefully that'll help. Not really. Just going to clean up this area a bit before reinstalling things, because I'm not going to be able to do a very good job once all this is reassembled. I just added a little bit of WD-40 to help the carburetor slide in. There is an O-ring here, that is the gasket. Just make sure it's there and in good condition. I cut up a new fuel line, roughly the same length as the original, but added a fuel shutoff. So let's get this installed. I might have to trim it a bit to make it fit right, but I think we're pretty close. Yeah, maybe cut it right about there. I'm going to put some gas in the tank. Make sure there's no leaks from the fuel line or the carburetor. think we're good. Let's try starting it, see if it'll start. First pull. That was much better. I was able to start it the first pull and turn the choke off right away. So I think we're in good shape. Let's get the wheel back on, we'll get it outside, and put it to the test. So the plan is I'm going to get this started. We'll let it warm up a little bit. I have the oscilloscope hooked up. I want to see what the output looks like. It's over here in the shade because it's going to be hard to see. But I think this is a brushless generator. And we'll know pretty quickly once we see the waveform. It'll be very dirty without a load. And then once I put a load on it, it should clean up quite a bit. But it's still going to be deformed compared to what a sine wave should look like. Now, this I thought was rated at 2500 watts, which makes sense because it's a 5-horse engine. It should be able to pull that continuously. But after looking at the manual a little closer, I realized this is only a 2000 watt generator. So we're going to be limited to testing it with one space heater. So when that's on full, we'll be at 75% load. Really just looking to make sure that the engine speed stays good, meaning above 58 Hertz. So let's get it started and see how it does. The big difference now that carburetor's clean, it actually started really easy with the choke on and was flooding the engine out. So I had to turn it off really quick and the engine took off and ran just fine. Maybe a little bit too well. It was running at, I think it was 63.3 Hertz and 137 volts. And that, it's definitely too much. So I did bump the speed down a bit closer to 62 Hertz just by pushing this tab in right here, where the governor spring is located. That brought it down to a better speed, 133 volts. And as far as the sine wave goes, yeah, this is definitely brushless. It was pretty dirty without a load, and even when loaded up, you could see that that sine wave was still deformed and not ideal. The output was pretty dirty. So if you're going to use this, just make sure you're not using it on something that is too sensitive, because it might cause some damage. You know, in this case, this generator actually belongs to Stanley. He didn't give this one to the channel, but he asked me if I could get it running again because he has an event he needs to bring it to, and it's in a remote location. So having something like this with these big wheels and a fairly light engine is going to work out well. So I hope this video helps someone. Thanks for watching.